The Canadian real estate market is in absolute chaos right now. Some properties have lost as much as $235,000 from the peak. I will touch on some examples later on in this video. Now, depending on where you are and who you're talking to, this could either seem like a complete nightmare or a massive opportunity. And today, we're going to dive deep into the realities of Canadian real estate in 2024 and break down what this means for you. Whether you're a buyer, a seller, or just someone who's curious about the real estate market, stick around. We're going to look at the stats, and depending on how you interpret them, the future might look either really promising or not so much. But before we get into it, I wanted to let you know my name is Cameron Brioux and I'm a realtor here in New Brunswick. And this video is being modeled after a previously produced video from my mentor, Noel Matthias. You should give us both a follow. Let's get right into it because we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to start by showing you a few graphs, and honestly, some of it is a little bit scary. But if you're a buyer in certain markets, it's actually pretty exciting because there are some deals to be had, like here in Moncton. All of the data we'll look at comes from Ben Rabideau. He has some great data, and it's through his company called Edge Analytics. Now, let's start with the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, on rented accommodations. When it comes to CPI and inflation, rental accommodations make up a significant portion of the increase. And if you look at the data, the cost of renting right now is just insane. And for some, renting is no longer the best option, especially with some of the deals that are coming up in the condo market. So there is this interesting shift happening where rents are becoming more expensive than owning. If you've been renting and watching your rent climb, this could be the time to start looking at buying, especially as prices are coming down in the condo market in some cities. One important thing to note is that rental accommodations actually make up about 0.6% of inflation. So if you were to exclude rental accommodations from the overall inflation number, it would actually drop from, let's say, 2.7 to around 2.1, which is good news from an inflation standpoint, but bad news when it comes to how much it actually costs to live in your home right now. Now, let's move on to housing starts. When you look at housing starts, even though the government says we need more housing for a growing population, housing starts are actually decreasing, and that's largely due to the economics of building homes right now. Interest rates are still too high to encourage builders to get into the market. If rates don't come down any further, we could see new home supply continue to shrink, especially when you compare it to our growing population. This is where the Bank of Canada comes into play, and as they've started to lower rates, but it might not be enough to turn things around quickly. Now, let's talk about what's actually getting built. Condo construction is still on the rise, mainly because pre-construction sales from 2021 to 23 are still being built. But rental construction, that's where things get interesting. We've never seen this many rentals being built. In fact, rentals now make up almost 40% of all properties under construction, as you can see in the graph. This is the highest it's been in my recent memory, and I couldn't really find anything going back in history that charted this. This could lead to a short in single family housing over the next 5 to 10 years. So while we're solving one problem, adding more rental units, we're potentially creating another. Down the road, single family homes could become scarce, which would drive up the pricing even more. If you own a condo now and plan to upgrade to a single family home in the future, you're going to want to pay attention to these trends. Your opportunity to buy a single family home could start disappearing as the demand increases and supply shrinks. When it comes to condos, there is another issue at play where fewer condo starts are happening. That's because the influx of condos that are about to hit the market, developers aren't really rushing to build more. The market for pre-construction sales has actually vanished in most cities. So while there is still plenty of condos under construction, new developments are actually slowing down. So with this massive shift towards purpose-built rentals, it could actually have a long-term impact on Canada's ability to build wealth, as homeownership has actually been one of the biggest drivers of our net worth in this country. And I'll let that sink in. Or maybe I'll just throw up a meme about how our grandparents bought a home for a sack of potatoes back in 1960 and are now selling it for $1 million. The stats are clear. Homeowners near retirement age typically have a net worth around $1 million, and while lifelong renters would typically have much less. This shift toward renting could prevent many Canadians from building the kind of wealth that homeownership provides. So, if you're renting right now and thinking about buying, it might be worth considering, especially if you want to build long term wealth. Now, I get it. Saving for a down payment can be challenging, but there are more ways to put money aside for a property. And the mortgage rules are starting to change to allow a benefit for first time home buyers. Now, let's talk about some of the fastest growing cities in Canada. Did you know that 5 of the top 10 fastest growing cities by population in North America are actually in Canada? Which is wild when you consider our population compared to the US. This rapid growth is putting even more pressure on our housing market. And did you know that fewer people are actually borrowing? That's contributing to the increased demand for rental properties. Canada is on track to become a renter's nation. When it comes to mortgage rates, there is a lot of speculation that rates will continue to come down over the next few years, and we are starting to see some softening at the time of recording this video. But even if rates do come down, you will need to be careful about how you actually lock in your mortgage. Many people are opting for shorter term mortgages, thinking that they can time the market and refinance if rate drops. But the market is tricky and it often leads to poor decisions if you try to treat it that way. Fixed rate mortgages might actually make more sense right now, even though they seem higher. If you're paying a premium for a variable mortgage, rates would have to drop significantly for it to pay off. So if you are in the market for a mortgage, I recommend talking to a mortgage broker. And if you need one, I have a few that can help out. In my experience, a great mortgage broker will do a full breakdown looking at your situation, looking at the risk, and helping you step by step. Let's take a look at home sales. These numbers are seasonally adjusted, and home sales are actually up for the first time across the country. This is a bright spot in an otherwise tough real estate market. There are some great deals out there right now, and I will show you an example later on. So, where does this leave us? Well, we've got a market where prices have dropped in some cities, and sales are starting to pick up, and interest rates are still high but softening. This could be the perfect time to snag a deal before the market starts to shift again. So, if you're waiting for the bottom to fall out of the market, could that even happen? Possibly, but here's the thing. If it doesn't happen and prices stay steady or even rise, you'll have missed out on a great opportunity. Right now, with slightly higher interest rates, fewer buyers are out there and there are more listings coming to market. So that actually gives you a chance to negotiate, potentially get a really good deal. Now, let's look at how this plays out across Canada. If you look at cities like Calgary, prices are up over 15%, and Edmonton and Montreal are also seeing some gains, and so is my market in Moncton, New Brunswick, which is a bright spot in the Canadian real estate market. Meanwhile, Toronto and Vancouver, well, those markets have shifted more towards condos as single family homes have become increasingly unaffordable for many. I get it. That's why people are making the move to Moncton. And here's the lesson if you're a seller. Pricing your home correctly from the start is key. To tie it all together, the example is there was a house in Ontario, but because the seller held out for a higher price, it eventually sold for $100,000 less than what they could have gotten had they priced the property right from the start. Now, I get it, it's a tough lesson, but it shows how important it is to price strategically in today's market. So, whether you're looking to buy or sell or just stay informed, make sure that you are paying attention to your local market trends. Every city is different and timing is everything. If you do have any specific questions or you want to book a call, you can head down to the first link in the description and book a call with me. Thanks for watching, and until next time.